You know, when we think of a space race, we tend to picture those grainy images from the 1960s. But forget all that. The new space race isn't about planting flags and leaving footprints anymore. Oh no. It's about commerce, it's about resources, and it's a fierce, high-stakes battle for what many now consider the ultimate high ground. So today, we're going to break down the incredible game being played just above our heads. At first glance, this looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? A terraformed Mars, all green and full of life. But this is not just some fantasy. This is the very real, long-term vision that's driving companies like SpaceX. Their mission isn't just to go visit, it's to build a totally self-sustaining second home for humanity. And an ambition that big, well, it forces the entire world to sit up and react. And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Is this incredible vision for our future just an inspiring dream? Or is it the cover story for the most important geopolitical power struggle of our time? To even begin to answer that, you have to understand the sheer scale of the ambition we're dealing with now. We have entered a totally new era, one that's defined by timelines that would have seemed absolutely impossible just a decade ago. I mean, just look at this roadmap from SpaceX. It is absolutely breathtaking. By 2025, the goal is to master orbital refueling. That's a huge deal for any deep space mission. By 2029, they're aiming for a person to land on Mars. And by 2050, a self-sustaining colony of 1 million people. This isn't some slow, gradual exploration. This is a full-scale colonization plan on a ridiculously fast schedule. But of course, when you make a move that big, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum, right? It sets off a firestorm of competition, forcing everyone, from rival companies to entire nations, to scramble and figure out their own strategy for what to do in space. And what you're seeing here is this classic strategic battle playing out in real time. On one side, you've got SpaceX making this massive, high-risk, high-reward bet on its giant Starship. But then, on the other side, you have competitors like Rocket Lab playing a totally different game. They're building smaller rockets, sure, but they're also creating an entire ecosystem around them, with satellite parts and data services. It's a real clash of titans, the integrated giant versus the nimble, specialized rival. Okay, so the race to build bigger, better rockets is definitely heating up. But what if the real race, the one that truly matters, isn't happening in the skies at all? What if it's a hidden war, happening right here on Earth, for the very stuff that makes spaceflight possible in the first place? I mean, think about it. What if the winner of this whole space race isn't the company with the smartest engineers, but the country that controls the global supply chain for a handful of absolutely critical elements? And this is where the problem really snaps into focus. Take a look at materials like gallium and germanium. This stuff is absolutely essential for the high-performance solar panels and electronics that are basically the brains of any spacecraft. And yet, over 90% of gallium and 70% of germanium production is controlled by China. This isn't just a simple supply chain issue. This is a massive geopolitical vulnerability. And believe me, this dependency, it runs deep. For years, high-performance engines relied heavily on Russian titanium. Those advanced electronics we talked about, almost totally dependent on Chinese gallium. The big takeaway here is that every single rocket, no matter how shiny and advanced, is basically held together by this incredibly fragile global supply chain. Now, SpaceX is trying to get around this by developing its own special stainless steel for Starship. But for the most critical guts of the rocket, those strategic vulnerabilities are still very, very real. So when you have resources that are this strategic and one side has a chokehold on them, well, competition can escalate, and it can escalate fast. We're now entering a much, much more dangerous phase, the very real possibility of space itself becoming a battlefield. Okay, to really understand the military strategy here, you need to know this term, astropolitics. The idea is simple, really. If you use outer space as the 21st century's version of the high seas, whoever controls the key trade routes, in this case, orbits, and the key strategic positions can effectively control everything that happens down below on Earth. It's all about securing the ultimate high ground. And listen, the weapons we're talking about for this potential conflict, this is not science fiction anymore. Military strategists are seriously planning for things like orbital bombardment. They call them rods from God. Basically, giant tungsten rods dropped from orbit at insane speeds, nearly impossible to stop. They're planning for space blockades to cripple an enemy's satellite network. And of course, anti-satellite attacks that could wipe out GPS, communications, and intelligence, all in an instant. This is the new, frankly terrifying reality of space. Okay, so you're facing these huge resource vulnerabilities on one hand and these scary new military threats on the other. What do you do? Well, nations like the US are already rolling out counter-strategies to try and secure their own position on this new high ground. One of the main game plans is what they call a choke point strategy. The first step is tech suffocation. Pretty straightforward. You just use export controls to stop your rivals from getting the critical tech they need. But then there are these darker, more clandestine ideas, like supply chain poisoning, a theory where you could embed hidden kill switches in parts that you sell to an adversary. Both of these are really forms of economic warfare, designed to slow the other side down. But the much bigger, long-term play here is to completely remake the entire global supply chain from the ground up. This is all being driven by two key ideas. First is friendshoring. That's the tactic of moving your critical supply chains to allied countries you trust. The other is de-risking, and that's the much broader, much more difficult goal of slowly but surely untangling your entire economy from a rival. It's a massive, multi-decade project. And make no mistake, this is not just theory. It's happening right now. You've got Western nations pouring money into rare earth mines in Greenland to create a non-Chinese supply. They're funding a huge railway in Africa, the Libido Corridor, to secure access to cobalt and copper. And they've even formed something called the Minerals Security Partnership, which is basically a NATO for resources, with 14 countries coordinating to secure their supply chains. The geopolitical map is literally being redrawn as we speak. And that brings us right back to where we started. The dream of space, the one we all love, is about a shared human destiny, right? Pushing boundaries together. But the reality? Well, the reality is a messy, complicated tangle of ambition, dependency, and conflict. So as we watch these incredible rockets climb into the sky, we have to ask ourselves a really tough question. Are we watching the dawn of a new age for all humanity? Or are we just watching the opening moves in a high-stakes battle for the ultimate high ground?